Hi, everyone. Jon Liebman here. Welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I've got a fantastic interview this week with one of my favorite bass players, Tom Kennedy, talking about his latest release, all the stuff he's doing with Dave Weckl, and some very interesting thoughts about how to approach the bass if you're just starting out to learn the bass. All that and more coming up right now. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Jon, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you again. I was looking over the two interviews that we did with you. The first one was a text interview from, I think, 2012. And then the other one was a video from a hotel in Southfield, Michigan. I forgot who you were coming through town with, but anyway.
Oh, gosh, I don't remember that either. But,
okay.
Doesn't matter, right?
Well, it's been a few years. You're always busy. You're always in demand. I don't know about during COVID, but we'll get to that. But what I really want to talk about first is your most recent release, Stories, that you did with Dave Weckl and a bunch of other heavy hitters. And I think it's really cool how you used your travels and your experiences as a basis for composing and putting together this compilation. So talk to me about Stories.
Well, thank you so much, and for that observation as well. It was really, mentioning about the different experiences on the road and different experiences with people, the people that I've grown up with, musicians that I've grown with, and there was some of that on the record as well. But it was interesting because I actually started writing the record in Europe. I remember the first tune I was writing. I was just thinking of something I wanted to record something with Dave. I wanted to write something that would really show him off, Dave Weckl. And this tune idea popped into my head. And I remember this is somewhat of an involved story, but I'll try to do the short version. We were in a car driving, on one of these typical 2-hour to the airport deals in the middle of a tour. And it was like 6 a.m. and we were exhausted. But something popped into my head, and I realized that I had my laptop, but I didn't have any kind of a trigger keyboard or anything like that. But I opened Pro Tools, and I was just kind of looking around, and I got into what they call the MIDI editor, and I realized that I could just click notes in to this grid, and create a thing. And so I set it for a piano sound, and I started clicking in notes, and I was able to get this chord progression in that I was thinking about. And then I thought, you know what, I better put in a little drum pattern, just so I remember what this thing is, And then from there came the bass. And I think by the time we hit the airport, I had about 8 to 16 bars, and basically had kind of the tune constructed already, doing this with a pair of, earbuds and my laptop. And wow, like the everything, like the alarms went off, and it was like, wow, I can do it this way.
I read something you said, rather than lugging around a big keyboard into the hotel rooms, and you mentioned something about some kind of mad scientist vibe that you had when doing
I certainly felt like it, sitting in the back seat. In fact, Dave was in the front. He said, he kind of turned around, snapping, and he kind of turned around. He said, quit all that clicking back there, because I was just kind of like going on it. And so I realized this was kind of a new approach to writing. I've never really preferred the traditional sitting at the keyboard thing, trying to knock things out, not being a pianist, and having a brother and sister who were both just world-class musicians, pianists, and so I never really got into it. I've always been a bass player,
Let's talk about the music and some of the things that inspired it, because that's fascinating to me. I mean, you really got into it as going as far as the smell of the hotel. I mean, did that inspire one of the? So talk to me in general about how your travels translated from what you saw and what you experienced to putting together music, which ultimately culminated into this album, Stories?
Well, it's interesting, and I was just thinking about this the other day, and someone, we were talking about someone's idea of a tribute song, and I can't remember who the composer was or who the tribute was to, but I remember someone saying, well, that really doesn't seem like, so much of a direct tribute. It doesn't really sound like their music. And I said, well, maybe it doesn't sound like that to you, but maybe it did to them, so I always think it's a very personal thing, and when you're writing something, if you are paying tribute to someone, I wrote a song paying tribute to the Yellow Jackets on this last thing. It is called Don't Forget Your Jacket. That's what I called it. And kind of a little joke. And don't forget your Yellow Jackets, because they have influenced me so much through the years. And I think everybody that that I play with and everyone I know musically, they just they're just incredible.
I still don't understand how Jimmy Haslip takes a righty bass and plays it upside down without restringing it.
Well, he's one of my heroes, man, and
slapping
it was
on
great. To kind of get off course here a little bit, we did a jazz festival in Singapore about a decade ago, and the Yellow Jackets and the Mike Stern Band actually ended up on stage together doing a jam session, and Jimmy and I stood together, like a big bass V, and had like these two big jump monster amps behind us.
Like Paul and George, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. And man, we had a ball, and I'm sure he would remember it if you brought it up, because it was really a special moment. It was really something, and to be up there with those guys, because I love their music.
Me too.
But it really is. It's sights and smells, and like you'll walk by and I'll smell someone cook, something being cooked, especially in Italy, my favorite food, and it does inspire, and it probably just inspires more of a mood. But I've always kind of I think there is a direct translation between mood and music.
Sure.
I remember
Absolutely.
being moved when I was a little kid. There were some tunes on the radio I remember that I heard that really, there were some that were just fun, and they were like top 40 pop hits, and they were fun to listen to. And then every now and then a song would come on that it would put me in a place, and music has always done that for me. So, what I was trying to do is kind of see if I could translate those feelings into music that might put someone else in a particular place, in their own past or whatever. So, I think that's the real magic of what we do,
How did you decide who was going to be on the record with you, who to feature?
Well, it's funny. I was asked this question too last week. A friend was talking to me, and I said, by the time I had written the melody of the songs and already kind of projected sort of what the solos were going to be, or what the solo spaces, or if I hadn't gotten to that point, when I got to that point, it was pretty clear who I wanted, and it's all based on what I've, the people I've played with them, and how long I've played with them, and the type of things I've done with them, And so, for example, I was, there was this kind of this light, airy, little bit complicated, solo passage, and I just heard Randy Brecker from the beginning, and I thought, well, I hear him. I don't know if he'll do it, but I definitely hear him playing on this thing, and I wrote to him, and asked, and he was, such a gentleman, and he and he listened to it. He goes, yeah, this does kind of sound like something I'd play, and boy, that's thrilling. That is so thrilling, when you get any kind of a positive feedback from your work. We're very sensitive people, and it's it's really an interesting thing. As hard as musicians can be, and as road tough as we are, we're also very, very sensitive, you know. And you know, going back to the idea of you know, things moving you, or seeing, you know, something on a trip that inspires an idea, you know, or a thought, or you know, maybe meeting someone and having a conversation with someone that kind of changes you, you know.
I was listening to the record, and I think I hadn't read the notes yet, and I'm thinking, oh, that is absolutely 100% Mike Stern. Absolutely. Nobody else sounds like that.
You can't mistake him, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, I just love the guy.
Yeah. And at the very, very beginning of the whole record starts with like a 2-beat drum intro.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only 2 beats or something like that. I said, that's Weckl. That's Dave Weckl.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He has his, you know, his sound and his approach, and boy, he's, you know, and that is one of the greatest things that a musician can have, is an identity, you know, an immediate identity that people just know, you know. And boy, that's and I think all of, you know, everybody that's on this thing is represented that way. I mean, I think, you know, as soon as they make their entrance, you're like, you know who it is. You know, and it's a beautiful culmination of things.
You and Dave grew up together, or you knew each other as kids?
We met when we were 14 and 15.
I'd call that kids.
Yeah, we were young, but you know, both of us had been playing for a long time by that point. You know, I mean, both of us had probably been playing 5 or 6 years at that point. And we met at a Stan Kenton summer camp in Springfield, Missouri. I'm from St. Louis, and Dave is from St. Louis County, St. Charles, they call it. But we were both there. It was actually my 3rd year being there, and you know, I just loved it. I mean, it was a week of just music. I mean, I was a little kid. I was a skinny little kid that didn't eat, and I didn't eat. I mean, I didn't eat for the entire time. You know, I was just going around hearing all the bands and hearing all the clinics and all the talks, and you know, the rehearsals, and there was just things to do all the time. And during one of the like little masterclass things, Dave and I ended up playing together.
Were you just on the upright for this Stan Kenton camp? I can't really picture you with an electric bass at a forum like that.
Well, I've started as an upright player. You know, I was 8 years old when I started playing upright, and I played upright until I was 16. You know, I mean, exclusively upright until I was 16 or 17. And then I started, you know, playing electric bass. But the majority, even at that point of my experience, was on the upright. And then, you know, when I moved to New York, it really kind of shifted over quite a bit. And I started, you know, really, really playing a lot more electric. And, you know, I still play both, and I still love that guy back there, you know, and, you know, it just depends on the circumstance. It's great to be able to have that flexibility, you know, sure, and go between them, you know. So, but Dave and I had a chance to play together, you know, at the camp, and just kind of, it was an instant connection. And then my brother sat down and started playing piano, and we thought, okay, well, here we go. You know, here's the trio, you know. And so when we got back to St. Louis, all of us, you know, the 3 of us would get together, usually at our house. I don't know. I didn't drive my mom and dad crazy, because we were playing, or we had music blasting. You know, I bought this big acoustic 370 speaker cabinet, an 18-inch folded horn, and I put it in the dining room of our house. and I used to play the stereo through it, and I try to find these tracks that had like this ridiculous bass. You know, and then I'd turn like 60 hertz all the way up, you know, and then walk to the other side of the house, you know, to feel the bass of this thing, you know. I mean, I don't know how the house didn't fall down.
You reminded me of a story. I saw Graham Nash on TV years ago, I think on Letterman or something, and he was talking about Neil Young. And I guess Neil Young had a farm out in Canada somewhere. And he had a house over here, and he had a barn over here, and a lake behind it, behind the house and the barn. So he took Graham out in a boat in this little lake, but he had the whole house rigged up with tons of speakers functioning as the left stereo speaker. And then he had the barn rigged up with a whole other bunch of speakers, which were functioning as the right stereo speaker. So he had his engineer, and he yells out to Neil, "How's it sound, Mr. Young?" And he says, "More barn."
That's a good one. That's great.
Classic.
Good thing I didn't live on a lake, because I would have probably tried to pull something like that.
That's funny. I could just imagine your mom coming home one day and seeing that thing in the dining room, what her reaction might have been. But I know what my mom's reaction would have been.
I remember going on gigs back in St. Louis. I had, at one point, I had two of those things. And I found out that if I turned them against the wall, like did a double folded thing, there was even more bottom end. And so I would do that. And I remember being at a place that had like a glass wall, and I was taking my stuff out, and I'd cracked the glass. I'd broken the glass.
Why didn't you get a Leslie speaker? That would have been fun.
I know, exactly.
You and Dave have another project, right? The Dave Weckl, Tom Kennedy project, it's called, right?
Yes.
Is that right? Project. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Well, it's something new. We just toured it last month. We went out all of November, and we were in Europe, Italy, Czech Republic. We went to Spain and ended up in Istanbul.
It's not just the two of you, is it?
No, it's a quartet, actually. Okay. And we
because otherwise that's a very acquired liking, just bass and drums, you know.
Well, I got to tell you, the sound of it's a quartet, but it sounds much bigger. It's our friend for a million years, Bob Franceschini, is playing tenor and soprano on the thing, and we've all toured together with Mike, with Mike Stern and other people, and
I saw him with Victor Wooten when he came through town one time.
Right, with Victor, yeah, he's been very busy with Victor as well.
And who else is it?
It's a keyboard player named Stu Mindeman, a guy from Chicago, and he's just worked with a ton of people, and he's just really, he's a young guy, but very seasoned, very mature, and approaches the music beautifully, and was so conscientious about learning parts, because he was actually in the beginning like triggering horn lines and things, and playing keyboard, and then trying to play a montuno, and then play an electric piano part on top of that, and
wow,
just crazy, and I would say, well, let me know when you've had enough, because I just kept piling it on. He was like, okay, well, I think I can do that. I think I can do this and do this way. And, I mean, it's really just rare to find people that are just that open, that talented. And he's been really a great addition.
Tell me about your bass, your basses. You're still playing Federas? Is that a Federa I see over your shoulder?
Yeah, that's it. This is actually, I'm going to get up so I can get it. This is my standard, and the chair's in the way.
It looks like a chair.
Yeah, this is my standard model, and they call it a standard. It's actually a bolt-on neck, but interestingly, they made it sort of like a single cutaway. They were still able to figure that out. So actually the break happens here. So you actually get that much more connection. Normally the bass will come down here.
Yeah.
The bass won't connect to the neck until somewhere here, and it kind of is up in this area. So it gives it that more connection, to the body. And I've just noticed that it's very similar to my signature model, which is a bolt, which is a neck through bass, and they're so similar. I mean, I can just I can just switch them out as I want.
I love the Federas, always have.
Oh, they're amazing. I've been with them since 1984.
I want to ask you about learning bass? Because you learned under fire, really. You were like what, maybe a teenager when you're playing with Dizzy and Freddie Hubbard and James Moody and all those guys. But
Yeah.
and for bass players only, we've got well over 800 interviews now. So we've been pretty well known for that, but we're really a bass instruction site. And most of the people I attract are men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. They're not career bound. They're not trying to set the world on fire. They just want to get together with their friends, maybe play some blues shuffles, some classic rock riffs, some walking bass lines. They just want to have fun. And maybe they've got a little more time than they used to. Maybe they're retired, or maybe they've just always wanted to do it. They've dabbled in it. So in that context, what advice do you have for somebody who wants to learn to play bass? What do you think is important for them to know?
Well, I think to know maybe a different thing from what they should maybe do. And I only put it that way because I think people that are older or further along in life and have those experiences kind of have an idea what they want to do. So I think a lot of people that get into music, at a later age or a later stage in your life, have particular bands or have particular songs or have particular even down to particular bass riffs that they want to learn. And I said, my best advice for someone is if they are just starting, like they just got an instrument or thinking about getting an instrument, is get the instrument, mess around for a while, give yourself 6 months to a year of just messing around and enjoying the thing and having no idea what you're doing. Because, in not knowing what you're doing, you're figuring out what you're doing on the instrument. You're getting your hands on it, and I've learned from experience from all the years I've been out there playing, that every time I pick up the instrument, I can look at it a different way if I want to. I can try something else. I can try to play it a different way. Sometimes I'll just pick a finger on my right hand and play with that finger, and it's not always pretty, and it doesn't always sound that great, but it's a way to kind of explore, and I purposely try to play wrong on the instrument as well, like using weird fingerings and things like that, because I stumble across some really great stuff. And I remember especially doing that on the upright bass. My mentor back in St. Louis, a guy named Jerry Cherry.
Yeah.
Was incredible. I mean, it was an incredible bass player, and extremely underrated. He got there, and he used to always tell me that. I'd say, well, what did you think about it? He goes, well, I just thought about getting from here to here, and he thought, I just always wanted to do it in time, and I wanted it to always feel good, and I wanted it to always have heart, and he said, and actually, doing it that way, he said, I think I put a little bit more oomph into everything I did, because it was, I was working a lot harder than guys that have the correct technique on the bass, so I never forgot that concept. And there actually is a lot of validity to that, so I think it's good for somebody to just mess around for a while, kind of see how the notes make sound, and how do you try to emulate the same, kind of sound or kind of the same approach as the guy that you're trying to copy, or emulate. And then, once you kind of get an idea of how the mechanics of the thing and how it sounds and how to manipulate it to make it kind of sound the way you want to, then you can, go into actually learning how things are supposed to be done correctly.
Wouldn't it be advisable to have some of the basics down first before you do that? Because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, well, wouldn't you have to break a lot of bad habits if you have not a clue where to begin or what you're supposed to do?
Well, I'll only say it because that's the way I learned. And I actually, Jerry was my mentor. So for the first, I'd say, year that I was playing the bass, I didn't approach it with any kind of technique at all. I would go out and I'd watch him play. And, obviously there are certain things that you're going to have to do on the instrument or it's going to be physically impossible to play, and also, we have an advantage these days, an incredible advantage of being able to turn on YouTube and look at the best players on the planet and how they approach the thing. So a lot of it when I was a kid, I remember I saw John Worster play with Stan Kenton. Probably not a lot of people know his name, but he was a great big band bass player. And I remember watching him, and he had correct technique. So I had an idea of what it was supposed to look like, but I really think that there should be this kind of, let's get there. Let's try to get the point out and get the music out first. Because I think if you get too hung up on technique in the beginning, you're kind of missing some of the organic character of what it is to play the instrument. And so I think that's really, the point. I don't think anybody's going to go into it blindly and play with their thumbs only. I think people are going to see other people play, but I think it's fun to maybe emulate and try to look like somebody and just kind of mess around and do that thing. Be a kid, they call it playing music. I think you got to play. I think you do it by example. I think there are tons of ways to learn, which again, I'm not, putting down the structured way of playing at all. I'm really not. I think we all eventually have to do it correctly, or what is correct for us too, which is another topic and it's another conversation, because we're all built differently. And I noticed that certain things would work for certain students and not for others, and definitely not for me. So, yeah.
What about the future, Tom? What do you have coming up? Anything else that you haven't mentioned already that people would be interested in knowing about you?
Well, I'd say look out for this band. It's a new thing, but we've already done. Our
talking about the Weckl project,
the Dave Weckl, Tom Kennedy project. Yeah, that's I'm working on new music to try to do another recording soon, with the same idea. And as I said, there's a video that just shot up on YouTube if you want to search it out. And I'm really putting a lot of my sights in writing these days. And of course, I'll be out there. I mean, whenever it's safe to be out there, I'll be out there. We're supposed to be touring again in April. We're supposed to be going back to Europe in April and May. So we'll see how that pans out. But hopefully we'll be, and then we're looking at trying to book some things in the States, the West Coast, the East Coast, the Midwest, and we're just going to take it a day. I'm taking this a day at a time. I'm so enjoying this writing thing, and especially doing it the way I'm doing it on the computer, because you hear it back immediately, and it's very satisfying. And I actually just came up with a very cool thing today, right before I was talking to you, like this little chord progression thing. And I thought, wow, that really makes it worth it, So I'm so excited doing that, and I can't wait to be back out on the road more. And please just look for me. I'll be out there.
All right. It's the Dave Weckl, Tom Kennedy project. And the new album with you as a leader is called Stories. And it's got Dave Weckl and the other folks that you mentioned, Mike Stern and Randy Brecker, and a whole list of all-stars. Great record. Tom, it's great catching up with you. Always good to see you, and keep making good music and keep finding new ways to do it and new ways to play, and keep that innovation, keep those innovative wheels turning. We love it.
Well, John, thank you so much. And thanks for all you do for all of us. And I hope to do interview number 4 soon.
Me too. I look forward to that. We'll do a follow-up, and it shouldn't be hard because you've always got something new and exciting to talk about.
Thank you so much.
Take care, my friend. Be well, and hope our paths cross soon and often, and stay healthy.
You as well, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.